A very warm welcome to you. Many thanks for joining us on this week's edition of the program. We remain your source for all the latest happening in the world of business. I am Susan Obiako and you are warmly welcome. On the lineup this week, first we join Faith and her guest, Professor Chioma Agomo, Dean Faculty of Law, Anchor University, on the CEO Rendezvous for the exclusive session on the Nigerian Insurance Industry Reform Act and the future of insurance business. It was an incisive interview session. Please take a listen.
Problem with the insurance industry in the past was, as I said, is quick to collect. But when it comes to settlement,
you hear stories.
So the risk-based requirement will not really, that's coupled with other provisions, will not tell story. Even then, I think even before we got to this, I think the insurance industry had already started going around this thing to make sure that the insurance really cleans up.
Also on the lineup, we bring you highlights from the 2025 National Pension Commission PENCOM Media Conference in Lagos at the Zen Garden Restaurant Ikeja GRA. The conference was organized under the theme Pension Revolution Summit, a 365-day scorecard. It was, as always, an interactive forum. Let's check out excerpts.
Stronger capital means stronger institutions, better risk management, deeper expertise, and a greater capacity to attract and retain skilled workers.
This and many more are for your information and enlightenment. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the lineup. Details shortly after the break. Please stay with us.
There's a difference between planning to buy insurance and doing risk management.
The bane of insurance business is payment of claims.
The biggest risk is that risk that you've not recognized.
Get all the latest happenings on insurance, pensions, banking and finance, real estate and general business every week on Almond Finance and Wealth Report on ASO TV Abuja on DSTV channel 392 on Fridays by 11 a.m. or watch on YouTube at Almond Finance TV. Follow us on all social media platforms at Almond Finance.
A very warm welcome to you. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the CEO Rendezvous this week. I'm actually very delighted to be sitting one-on-one. I would say a living legend when it comes to insurance law and law generally in Nigeria. Is a woman I've known, I've come to love, to come to respect over the years. I'm speaking about none other than Professor Chioma Agomo, who is currently the Dean Faculty of Law, Anchor University. Thank you so very much, Prof.
My pleasure.
For finding time to join us on the program this week. Thank you so very much. Okay, so let's get started. As I said, you are an authority in insurance law in Nigeria. Now, for those who may have forgotten, you were a member of the late Professor Joe Iruku's led committee in 2008, set up by the government to look into the existing insurance laws and come out with suggestions on legislation that would drive the industry in the 21st century. Now, 17 years down the line, Niira is here. Were you surprised on the length of the time it took before we now have this law?
Yes. Very, very surprised, disappointed, and I would say I lost hope. And more or less decided, let me put insurance in the back burner and move on with my life. Because 17 years is a long time.
Okay, Prof, in your opinion, why did you think it took so long for this law to come into existence, for the passage of the Insurance Act?
It's very, very, very difficult, let me say, to say, because I know during that time, I had a crop of insurance professionals who had passion. I remember Fola Daniel, who was the commissioner of NICOM at the time, very passionate. And of course, the guru, the father of insurance industry, Professor Iruku, they had professors, the later I think came to be known, Fumi Adeyemi, and others who had the passion, who poured their heart out, the time and everything, to make sure that those of us were co-opted, because we are not part of the original committee set up. We're co-opted of Professor Taiwo Shekbeton, SAN, distinguished professor, myself, and a few others, including Adeyemi, were co-opted. And everybody had that zeal to work. I remember Honorable Laoshe. Everybody had that passion, that zeal, and worked and produced what we thought was a document that was fit for purpose, only for nothing to come to pass. So I can't really say what happened. It wasn't for lack of interest, it wasn't for lack of commitment, it wasn't for lack of expertise, it wasn't for lack of zeal at the time. So I can't really say. It must have been lack of political will. I don't know what else to call it.
Okay, as they say, popular parlance, it's never late than never. Many have praised Niira as the needed revolution in the Nigerian insurance industry. So I'd like to ask you, do you think, or do you consider this act the magic wand that will transform the Nigerian insurance sector?
Well, let me just remember when Barrister Dekbeba called me to tell me about this. You know, I had seen it in the newspapers. Like I said, my interest had, I had taken my eyes off it, so I wasn't really that interested. But when he kept calling me and said, no, that a special edition of Ombudsman was coming out and he wanted me to, there's no way that I would not do the forward. So he sent me the copy and all that. And I went through it. Yes. On paper, when you look at it, it's on paper, it's an instrument that, call it, meets the current dispensation, the nature of the economy and businesses, insurance, the globalization, the interwoven interlinking of businesses' interests across borders. So Niira is forward, let me call it, it's a forward-looking instrument. On paper, it is a forward-looking instrument, yes. If it's put to work, I think it should produce the needed results.
Okay, so Prof, let's look critically at some of the sections of the law, starting with capital adequacy, which is riding on risk-based capital requirement to replace the fixed amount. In your opinion, as an insurance law expert, do you think risk-based capital regime would really help to transform the Nigerian insurance industry?
I honestly and truly believe so. The reason is that when it's risk-based, you are going away from the paper requirement of the amount you have in the bank. That technical requirement, you have 5 million in the bank, and you fix it there, whatever, I'm happy. But it has nothing to do with the risk, the value of the risk you have assumed or you are running. So the risk-based means that your capital is based on the assessment of the risk you are running, both past, future, present, potential, so that it's a holistic, realistic assessment that you will be able to carry out the cover and when you deliver. You know, the problem with the insurance industry in the past was that it's quick to collect, but when it comes to settlement,
you hear stories.
So the risk-based requirement will not really, that's coupled with other provisions, will not tell story. Even then, I think even before we got to this, I think the insurance industry had already started going around this thing to make sure that the insurance really cleans up its image. So I think the risk-based thing, it's timely. I believe in it.
Okay, Prof, post recapitalization, what do you expect to see happen in the industry, given the various sections of Niira?
Well, what one would see or expect to see, whatever, for one, because of the upended minimum requirement like 60 for life and is it 40, whatever, low is a little lower for non-life, whatever. But first of all, there should be amalgamation, that is mergers. One would see, in fact, it would be in the interest of the insurance industry to go for mergers where we are not able to meet the new minimum capital requirements. And also, one would expect that this is where you will now begin to see, call it risk specialization, carving out your niches, areas that your strengths and weakness, where you can be able to make your mark. And also, because of the provisions of the Act, where you see the linkages across borders, not just because the provisions are there, so you can also have back in global collaboration or linkages or whatever that will make you a specialist, to make you solid, and will be able to deliver, to develop that confidence that is required, that this is industry that has come of age and is set to deliver in set areas. So we should be able to have, I think, let me put it, less of general practitioners, to practitioners that will carve out niches for themselves and be
specialized
and deliver.
Okay, Prof, I know before we got on set, we jokingly spoke about my next question. Now, over time, this is not just peculiar to the insurance industry. We've come to realize that in Nigeria, we have so many beautiful laws on paper across various industries or across various sectors. Now, the biggest challenge with all these laws is implementation. Now, under Niira, or even the old 2003 Insurance Act, you have those compulsory insurances of buildings, for instance, of vehicle, and all of that, group life and all of that. Those are reenacted under Niira and upgraded, if you will. But before Niira, implementation has always been an issue. Sorry to say, even from the part of the government that gives you the law, sometimes they are found wanting implementing their own law. So with Niira and some of the compulsory insurances that are there, how do we go around the hurdle of implementation?
I wish I had an answer for that.
Prof, you must have an answer.
I wish I had an answer for that, but you hit the nail on the head. You know, it's one thing to make law, but it's another thing to put it into practice. And in the past, let me just digress a little bit, not insurance, but that was a joking matter, as it were. When in 2001, I was privileged to go to the International Training Center of the ILO in Turin with the then president of the National Industrial Court, it's now of blessed memory. And before we went, each person, we are from over 40, how many countries, it's global, and each person was supposed to write up about the state of the law in your country. And implementation, how you are up to date with the ILO requirements. So each, so when we went doing the presentations, and I remember the then National Industrial Court president saying, oh, Nigeria is up to date, Nigeria is this, Nigeria is it. Then I questioned, if you open your mouth one more time, I will challenge you. And so I didn't know that the member from Trinidad, the participant from Trinidad, heard me. So I said, yes, we have them on paper. I said, I have them on, we all have them all on paper. Constitution says this says that. But in implementation, we are lacking. So it's no use coming to tell the global community we're up to date when we know that's no. It's on paper, but in practice. So is this when I remember this each time we say, Chioma challenging, But we can see from what Nigeria, the labor law situation of Nigerian industrial court, the fallout since then, what has been that where something is put into practice, you see the implementation, you see the impact. Everybody can see the status of the National Industrial Court of Nigeria today, labor law developments. So it takes the will. It takes the will that this ought to be done. For example, the no insurance, no cover, no premium, no cover is still there. And government is said to be the culprit. Credit, taking cover on credit. So if you continue to take cover on credit, when many of those buildings are public buildings, how can the cover be effective? Unless we begin to live by example.
The National Pension Commission, PENCOM, towards the end of 2025, put together a media conference in Lagos themed Pension Revolution Summit, a 365-day scorecard at the Zen Garden Restaurant, Ikeja, GRA. Welcoming journalists to the conference, the Director General of the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, Ms. Omolola Oluraron, noted that PENCOM will continue to defend contributors' rights.
Our reforms are built on data, dialogue, and discipline. We have not introduced these reforms in isolation at all. As we move into the next phase of the pension revolution, our focus remains clear: to expand coverage, deepen trust, improve investment outcome, strengthen supervision, and protect retirees and active contributors. Retirement security is not a privilege, it is a right, and PENCOM will defend it firmly and fairly. To our licensed operators, thank you for your cooperation. But let me be clear, we must remain innovative and ensure that customer service, excellent customer service, is at the root of everything we do. To the media, thank you for your partnership, your scrutiny, and yes, the headlines. You keep us accountable, and I believe Nigeria is better for it. But make sure you keep your news constructive, based on facts.
The ultimate goal of the annual PENCOM Media Summit is to strengthen the capacity of the media to ensure effective reportage of a contributory pension scheme and other related issues. This was again reinforced as the DG took time to take questions from journalists.
PENCOM is for all pensioners in Nigeria. We have really done well for the federal retirees. They are now smiling. We have 5 other states that are under CPS. In fact, pensioners in Lagos State, they are not happy. So what are you doing to ensure that the template is quickly released to the state governments in the 5 states and let the governments implement them and make the pensioners in these states also happy as their federal counterparts?
It's important to note that Lagos State is the most compliant state in the whole federation. So I think what the problem is the level of pensions they are being paid. I think it's the amount that is the problem. So part of what we discussed with Lagos State this year when we met with the governor earlier was the need to define a minimum pension based on standard of living. So I think that's what needs to be implemented. But when it comes to compliance with the CPS, Lagos State is out there on their own.
With the Q&A session over, Mr. Ahmed Lawan, Head, Compliance and Enforcement Department, PENCOM, spoke to journalists on the PenCare initiative, aptly tagged Sustaining Dignity at Retirement Through Healthcare Security. According to him, the expected outcomes of the initiative, amongst other things, is to improve the health and quality of life for senior citizens.
Outcome for the PenCare is we have currently a legal established BOT, transparency as fund with audited account, contracted pension codes, digital enrollment. Then the outcome will be access to healthcare for cycle retirees will transfer down next year, which will reduce out-of-pocket health spending, will improve the health and quality of life for senior citizens, and will enhance trust and reputation on the contributory pension. So the vision of PenCare is clear: a model for inclusive in Africa, alignment with the UN SDG. The SDG 3 requirement is good health and well-being. The SDG 10 is to reduce inequality. So it will serve as a foundation for public-private collaboration on social welfare.
Other paper presenters were Mr. Abdulkadir Mohammed Dahiru, Head Investment and Supervision Department, PENCOM. Giving an overview of the current portfolio, 60.35% is invested in government securities. While this provides high security, stable and predictable returns, its dominance limits overall growth and exposes the funds to inflation risks. PENCOM is, however, looking at other investment windows to ensure maximum returns for contributors. Total pension assets is still growing, recording over 26.66 trillion naira in the last quarter of 2025, with over 10.6 million active retirement savings accounts, RSA.
All right, that's our time on the program this week. Many thanks for being a part of it. Join us same time, same station next week for a fresh package. In the meantime, feel free to connect with us on all our social media platforms. If you miss any part of today's broadcast, please watch again on our YouTube channel, Almond Finance TV, and do well to subscribe. I am Susan Obiako. From all of us here, it's a goodbye.